You sort of come round. You need to have a close up here with this one.
As close as you can.
Okay. You running?
Yep.
So this is the 3/4 length purist I'm going to use, which is what you can see. The first thing from the butt is it's been beautifully finished. It's got a lovely plate on it, nice rounded finish in the bottom. Got there for the extension piece in the bottom. A lovely piece of ebony, really well done. Excellently finished. Nice joint, interesting joint. I've not seen this one before. Quick release. So it's a bit like a pyramid really, everything on the end. But one thing you notice about it is very quick and it's very solid as well. When I've hit the ball with it, it's been excellent. Not been any movement or anything. As for the cue itself, well, I say beautifully finished all the way through. Lovely grain in it. Excellent ferrule, really well finished. Nice professional tip on it there, now master probably. But just a general lovely cue and hits the ball very solid. I'm very impressed. That's the first ball I've potted on camera for about 10 years as well. So, but I really, really like this cue. There's not a shot with this cue that you cannot play. I mean, everything about it's great. It's solid. If you hit the ball hard, it doesn't waver or move. It's great for touch shots. I've been testing it and giving it a thorough going over, and well, it's the best cue that I've had in that price range in my hand, straight out of a rack. I've not seen one better. It's absolutely superb.
Does the grain line up everything?
Yeah, it's got excellent grain in it as well. I'll notice that a lot of the top players, if you can just look down there, you'll see the chevrons. They come like the little V's there, which the players will use for lining up. I'm a big fan of that, and this has been beautifully done. The chevrons are all in a line. Helps with your sighting for the ball, know whether you're cueing straight or not. Visually excellent, and of course quite useful. But I mean, I'm so impressed with it.
John, could you hear me on this? John, you were talking earlier about where you thought that there was a gap in the market between sort of like the £150 cue and the sort of £400, £500, £600 cue of the so-called handmade English-made cues.
Yeah, I think.
Do you think there's a gap in that market?
I absolutely do. I think there's a huge gap between a cue that's £150, which would be a nice cue, and something which you have to play like a handmade thing, which is £500–600. I mean, this has been really well done. You can tell it's been, lovingly made and everything. And there's a gap there. A cue something around about the 250 to 300 marker, which is equally as good as the top ones, hasn't been made yet. But this, I think, is the cue. I really do. I think this is an excellent cue. Everything about it, how solid it is, how it feels. I mean, usually when you pick a cue up out, you think, oh, don't like this, don't like that. Everything about this has been done lovely. Whoever's made this cue knows what he's doing, and he's made this to a very high professional standard.
Your own personal cue that you use is obviously English and handmade.
Yeah.
If that one got lost and stolen, how would you feel about using something like that on one of your seniors tours?
Yeah, so to be perfectly honest with you, this cue might not be going home with you, because this is an excellent cue, and I'm sure that as part of our deal together you can let me have this one, because this is absolutely beautiful. I would have no problem whatsoever putting that cue into use.
Well, Richard, to be honest, Richard has got to take that one back, but he will mark it and he will make sure that sample, that particular sample comes back to you.
Thank you very much indeed. It's absolutely beautiful. Make sure you look after it as well, by the way, because it's lovely. But that is, anyone who bought that cue, and for the price they bought it, has had an absolute.
So why do you think that one is? I mean, that you prefer the 3/4 to the half?
Yeah, the 3/4 was a cue. I was one of the first players to use that. In a sense, I like the fact that the guts of the shaft basically has not been broken in the centre. I mean, I understand people using two-piece cues, and they're fine as well. It's just from my own personal point of view, I think the guts of the shaft is here. It's not been snapped in half there and cut in half there and lost. It's still in there, and so you put the 3/4 on the butt on the end, and the guts and the engine of the cue is still very much in there. It makes it feel very solid. And this cue, as I say, from the minute I picked it up and played with it and hit the first shot, is exactly that. The taper of the cue, he's been very clever with. It's excellent. He's left the guts in the shaft, so there's plenty of power there. It's been nicely tapered down to about a 10mm cue. You don't want it any lower than that. You'd lose your accuracy on the cue ball by having that. As I say, got an excellent tip on it as well. It's honestly a beautiful cue. I mean, sometimes I'd get a cue, and even if I've got it off someone else, I'd be getting and I'd be trying to mess about with it and get it how I want to. The only thing you've got to do with that is chalk it.
Okay, another thing. Earlier today, you actually took that and actually rolled it on table.
Yeah.
And you surprised me with what you said, because I always thought that it sort of went round parallel. Now that one doesn't.
Well, it's still.
Can you explain on the camera?
Yeah, I can a bit.
Why?
Basically, what's making this cue so solid is he's left the majority of the wood in here in the guts of the shaft, which is good. Now, if you roll the cue, generally it'll still roll flat to the table, but if you just look, and I've pressed down on it there, you can see there's a gap underneath there. It's basically only the taper of the cue. It's still absolutely perfect, and it'll roll parallel on the table, but what he's been clever with is the taper has left the guts in the cue where you want it, and then it's got a nice progressive taper down. And the cue in itself, the tip in itself, it's very, very good the way it's been done. It's not cigared, it's not thick and then bent in. It's got a really natural progression. And really, honestly, all you've got to do with that cue is take it out, chalk it, and play with it.
So how does the 3/4 compare with the two joints, the half, the half and half, 50-50?
It's a matter of preference, I think. I think a lot of the times people who have the two-piece cues, it's also convenience, isn't it? It's a convenience factor. I mean, I go around with a 3/4 case, and that's what I choose to play with. We'll pick up this one is the purest of the two-piece, which once again is really well made. As I say, there'll be, beautiful finish on it, not a sharp edge anywhere, everything's taken off beautifully, the plaque fits in lovely, fits in nice in your hand. The joint itself is just a slightly smaller version of the one that we've got on the 3/4. Same thing again, quick release. What's been great is, look at this, you can tell there's been some time spent. The grain exactly matches up, so he's not just got the shaft off one, stuck it on and done it. The grain matches up exactly. There's been time spent on this. Look, see the way the two come together? Have a look on a lot of cues that you see these days, it doesn't do that. They just basically stick a shaft on with another butt. This has obviously been the one piece of wood, separated in the middle, and made sure painstakingly that it's put exactly where it should be. Once again, very, very nice grain in the cue. Look down the chevrons, very nice, good for your lining up. A lot of character in it, been nicely finished. Same thing again, same tip. And you can miss it dead easy like that. But once again, very, very solid the cue. Really nice feel on it. I personally prefer the 3/4, that's only my own preference. And I'm not, jumping on a bus or jumping in a taxi with my cue or whatever it is and going to the matches in the midweek. So I'd prefer to have the 3/4, but that's just my own preference. But this is still, for a two-piece, very, very solid.
Is there a difference in playing with a two-piece than a 3/4? Sorry, a 50-50 than a 3/4?
I think sometimes it's a lot of personal preferences involved in it. I mean, I still think that is even though for me, I wouldn't play with it because I prefer the 3/4. The two-piece in the middle there is very solid for the two-piece cue. It's just a matter of feel and what you've got used to. And I've played with the 3/4 cue for the last 20 years of my life.
So the most important thing, are you saying, apart from the thing about the weighting and the cueing and the tapering and all of that, it's the strength of the joint that's important?
It's the strength of the shaft.
Shaft.
It's the strength of the shaft. What you do not want to be doing, it's like playing golf, right? It's no good if someone is a big strong hitter of the golf ball and hits it 300 yards and you give him the wrong shaft in the club, it's a waste of time. It's going to go all over the place. So what you've got to have with a snooker cue is you've got to have a cue with a shaft in it that is very, very solid and doesn't waver when it's hit. So I've had cues in the past which I've had and they've been no good and they've thrown the ball off before it's even got to its intended target. That's the thing about the way these cues have been made and the way they've been tapered. There's no movement. The ball goes exactly where it isn't. So if I miss this blue, it's because I'm rubbish, which has happened quite a lot before in my career. But this is absolutely very solid. It's a feature of all of these cues is how solid they are through the hitting area. I've tried shots today where I've hit them 100 mile an hour. I've hit them soft, every single shot you can play with this cue, and it doesn't waver.
And is that one with all of the range that we've looked at today?
All of the range that we've looked at today, the most significant factor for me is how strong the shaft is through the hit. I haven't had one of those cues yet waver offline through any length of shot or force of shot.
So that's the one. What about the top of the? Is it the connoisseur that we were looking at? The top of the range.
Yeah, the top of the range one. There's a two-piece here again, the connoisseur. Very similar to the other one, except for obviously beautifully finished and veneered. So as you can see here, hand spliced, veneered. You can see if ever you're looking when they're rounded at the end, and the tips, they're hand spliced, as opposed to the ones that are just like completely triangular at the end. And you can see that's been really hand spliced. There's been a lot of time spent on that. Once again, beautifully finished. Facility for the joint on the bottom, lovely plaque on it. Nice quick release joint again. Feels very, very solid here. Very important. And of course, as long as the joint is doing its job, which we know it does, there's no reason why this cue shouldn't be solid either. So once again, just put a ball up there, hit this nice and firm. It's got a lovely feel, it's got beautiful finish on this, nothing sticky about it on the shaft, nothing you have to remove or get rid of straight away. Hasn't been sort of over laminated, very, very nice. Good feel. Missed pink. Solid, very solid all the time. Anything that's not solid is my eyesight, there you go. But every shot you can play, very, very solid, all the way through the hit. Excellent taper on the cue, and lots of guts been left in it.
We were talking earlier, John, that your favourite was the one that you were using just now, the Purist, but this one is more expensive. Can you see anything other than cosmetics that would be a selling point? And if the answer is no, say no, but is there anything that you are, I mean, how would you try and sell that one as maybe 50, 60, 70, 80 pounds more than the other one, or would you not want to do that?
On the cues that I've been given today, I probably wouldn't.
Yeah.
I actually think that as good as any cue that I've seen here today, is the Purist is here. I think this has got a lot more workmanship in it because of the veneers.
So it's more workmanship.
I think it's more cosmetic. I don't think in any way, shape or form this hits it any better than that cue. I don't think it hits any worse either.
So then it's a matter of personal preference with finish and stuff like that.
Finish and whether you like the veneers in the cue and how you do it. For me, the cue there, the Purist, is the best cue that I've had out of a rack ever in my hand. That's the best cue I've had.
Okay.
It's perfect. It's my specification. I would have no problem with them. I mean, we've got the connoisseur here. We've got the connoisseur here in the 3/4, which obviously I'm going to like a little bit more than the 2-piece because that's just my preference. You know, once again, really nicely finished. Nice chevrons that you can see down there for lining up. Obviously, he's knows his snooker. And a feature of all these cues, I can't say anything else other than so solid right through the hitting area. I mean, that is, you know, I as I say, I prefer the 3/4, and it's just a matter of, for me, it's a matter of preference. I mean, you can see, because of the joints in the 3/4, you can make it, there's slightly more definition there now in the veneers that you can see. It sort of brings it out a little bit more, that you can notice it's been done. But everything is absolutely perfectly matched up. And it's, you know, excellent cues. Very, very good, very solid. Matter of preference whether you want to pay the extra money for the more decorative cue.
You mentioned earlier on about you can play any shot you want with these.
Mm-hmm.
Now, as a pro, you can play more delicate. You've got a better range of shots than the average club player, or you can play them better, one or two. Is there any shot that would you go into the playing of these delicate shots or difficult shots or this side or anything without